You are watching Code Like an Architect series with Adil Ata on ArchiWisdom. Composition brings architectural powers to programming. Developing expertise in composition definitely takes your programming to another level. Benefits. The two key benefits of composition are flexibility and modularity. These two are umbrella benefits that bring a variety of other advantages. Flexibility. Unlike inheritance, you can use composition between any two classes. As long as there is a need and it makes sense in your context, you can apply composition between any two classes. You can perform composition with as many classes as you want. Additionally, you can use composition with multiple instances of the same class, as many as you need. This flexibility means that you can use composition in a lot of scenarios. Since there is no strict criterion, you can use it without worrying that you might be using it incorrectly. Additionally, composition is dynamic and happens at runtime, which means you can create composition relationships at runtime, remove them, or change them. You can add or remove the number of instances, and you can do all of that conditionally if needed. This brings a lot of flexibility. In addition, you can properly encapsulate composition. Unlike inheritance, it's not necessary for your composition relationship to be publicly visible. You can keep it hidden if you want to, which means if you change your composition relationship, it won't break your client code. Inheritance represents an is-a relationship and requires you to change your identity. On the other hand, composition represents a has-a relationship, and it doesn't demand that you change your identity. In addition, it doesn't interfere with your interface or contract. This flexibility of composition over inheritance leads to a design principle. Favor composition over inheritance. Modularity. Composition improves the modularity of our code, and modularity is a benefit that brings along many other advantages with it. Reusability. When we break our code into components, we can reuse those components in other scenarios as well. Modularity improves reusability. Replaceability. Imagine one of these components requires a major change that calls for a completely new implementation. In that case, we can simply create a new class, work on the implementation in isolation, and then replace the existing component. Had we mixed all the code in a single class instead of breaking it into separate components, this process would have been much more complicated. Maintainability. One advantage of modularity is that in the case of bugs or changes, we only need to modify the specific areas where the change is required. As a result, the chances of breaking other areas are significantly reduced. In test 3, we observed that with developers' approach, our work became increasingly difficult as we entered the maintenance phase. However, with architect's approach, the opposite was true. Our work became easier as we progressed through the maintenance phase. We were able to implement even complex and large requirements with ease. Testability. One advantage of creating components or modules is that they can be easily mocked, making unit testing much simpler. Additionally, modularity often reduces testing efforts. Faster and parallel development. Imagine in release 2, we needed to implement 100 fire abilities under a tight deadline, but with a large team of developers at our disposal. If each ability took 1 day to develop and we had 100 developers available, we could complete all 100 abilities in just 1 day, working in parallel, seamlessly, and without any conflicts or coordination issues. Code discoverability. If you are an experienced developer, you are likely familiar with how during the maintenance phase, it can sometimes take hours or even days just to track down a bug that ultimately requires a 5-minute fix. Imagine there's a bug in the awesome fire ability. If all our code were in a single class, as we saw in developers' approach, it would be a real challenge for any developer to pinpoint where the logic for the fire ability is hidden in that tangled code. But with our modular approach, it takes just seconds to locate it.